John Adams,
Yes.
Richard Donovan.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the minutes. I was able to send the minutes out. There were, do we have any changes? I know, Richard, you said the spelling of your last name and Ken's last name needed to be corrected,
Yes, please.
correct?
My fault.
No worries.
It was a lot of detail in that meeting, if I may say so myself. Thank you. Are there no other changes? Okay, can I call for a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Kathy, and I'll second. I'll take the roll call to approve. Brenda Marcy,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Cindy Osmond,
Yes.
Ken Truster,
Yes.
Jerry Donovan,
Yes.
John Adams,
Yes.
Richard Donovan.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to public comments. At this time, I welcome any member of the public to address the committee at this time, limited to today's agenda topics and 3 minutes or under. Do I have any takers? Okay. We're going to move on to our updated public input summary. And is Emily Meyerson with us, or Larry, will you be talking about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Will, and I will share my screen. Okay, so you should have all received the updated survey results. So we received some additional survey results from the posting at the library, and then also a couple follow-ups through Saugatuck Township. So we updated this original summary that we had put together with regards to, all of the options. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at this. I would say the secondary results were more or less more of the same. So no big changes in the results from the secondary, pretty much consistent with the first. So all of the responses had some additions and a couple of additional comments. So I don't know how much depth you want me to go into this, but in general, all of the results were very positive. So there were no real negative comments other than one, a waste of money. But basically, comments related to the individual segments were posted on here. I'll let you, hopefully you've read those. And I think this provides a great basis for you to assist you in making decision. And again, we talked about last time, this is not the determining factor in making your decision. This is one piece of the information for you to consider for making your determination on which route. Any particular questions or additional discussion you'd like to have about this part?
So we received 64 total surveys, including the community open house.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Larry or Emily, does this satisfy our need for public input in terms of the grant applications, or do you see anything further in the future other than the meetings of the governing bodies, which are public meetings as well?
No, this should suffice, and then the meetings of the governing bodies when they pass resolutions.
Terrific.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any other comments about our survey results, or shall we keep moving? All right.
Moving.
Let's keep moving. It's a big meeting. Let's jump into final routes and recommendations.
Okay, so I'm sharing on my screen the final route diagrams and typical cross sections. I I think we've all as a group been through these in quite a bit of detail a number of times. So rather than try to go through any kind of presentation, I would be happy to answer questions, but really, Holly, I think it's for your committee to debate the issue and come to a conclusion.
Okay, and one thing I would just like to make clear that I understood a little bit better after speaking with Larry and Emily is that the drawings that we have right now are schematic designs that are basically used for purposes of cost and funding. So when we get to, you know, where the crosswalk goes and how we go past the sign and how many trees get taken out or the landscaping, that's something that happens in design phase. And we don't go into design phase until we find out from the grantor that we are competitive. So that's another phase. And when we go into design phase, we will be working with all of the communities at that time. So people will definitely be able to weigh in on what they really like or what they don't really like. So you can take that back to your councils. John.
Yes, I assume as part of that design phase, any material changes in the actual route would be reflected in new cost estimates as we go. Is that accurate? Or
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yes, that's correct. So during the design phase, so we're setting the baseline for MDOT basically and trust fund to know what to expect in our design drawing. So if we were to come and do a major change to this, that would be something we'd have to go through their process to change. So the design plans need to comply generally with the route selection that you'll be making, and then basically adding a lot of detail. And as part of the design process prior to bidding, there will be more detailed construction cost estimates prepared, because of course you'll have a lot more information to go on in terms of exactly where it's located, exactly what needs to be done. And so, yes, there will be certainly updates as part of that phase.
Okay, Richard?
Yeah, Larry, just for the benefit of the committee, although we've touched on this in the past, can you explain, first of all, that we do need to select a preferred option where we have two choices? And what happens if we get into the design phase with MDOT and encounter an insurmountable issue? For example, you know, we can't agree on the nature of the vertical separators over the bridge, or MDOT is insisting on something that the Douglas and Saugatuck councils find is unacceptable for aesthetic reasons. What happens then? You know, is there negotiation? Can we fall back on a different design, or are they going to make us, you know, withdraw our application and start all over again, or something else?
Emily, you can help me with this, but so if they approve your original concept plan and grant, and then we get into the design and start looking at some of the details like delineators or vertical separation, and MDOT has an issue with those, they will come back to us as part of the design and their design review and explain what their issues are, and perhaps offer some alternatives, perhaps not. So it would be incumbent on us as a group to, number one, either come up with a revision that will satisfy MDOT's or MDOT's requirements. And since they are the reviewer and approver, you know, there could become, if it's an insurmountable, then basically you're going to withdraw your application or they're going to deny it. So I don't believe you would get into that type of position, but you know, that's a possibility. In the end, we have room to negotiate with MDOT and tell them why we feel these design elements meet their criteria, but they are the ultimate decision maker since they hold the funding.
Right, understood. But so, for example, if we go in our application with a conceptual design for the the 3-lane option, but then we do run into an insurmountable hurdle. Can we fall back on the 2-lane option at that point? Or we have to start all over because we relied on the 3-lane as part of the initial conceptual submission?
My belief is you would be able to fall back because we're going to present not only your first choice, but the ultimate options that were considered. And so if MDOT is unwilling to accept some portion of the 3-lane option and may be willing then to accept the 2-lane, and Emily, you're going to have to help me with this. I don't believe we would have to resubmit at that time. So, obviously there would be cost ramifications and other ramifications, but it still could be a negotiation type process.
Typically, if MDOT is like asking for a change and it might cost more, they'll let you increase your grant amount, but only at the percentage that you ask for. So let's say you ask for 60% of the construction costs, and this, whatever they have requested from you and you've made the change, is going to increase the cost. They'll let you increase your grant amount that 60%.
Thank you.
Okay, that's helpful. Anything else, or should we jump into the options for the bridge?
Yeah, so it seems like you have 2 different options to choose from for the phase from Washington to Lake and then Lake to Maple. And I'll leave it at that.
So I have to say, this has been a bit of a Sophie's choice for me. I have vacillated today back and forth on this because I've been very agnostic for this entire time of this committee, whether we did 2-lane or 3-lane, because I always wanted whatever was feasible, whatever was plausible, whatever everybody could agree on. So I never really got attached to anything. And now that I have to make a decision, I'm still torn both ways. I know that the 3-lane option is the most palatable for public safety for Janik and the fire department. I know that they're both safe, but that is their preferred. The public response, obviously, I was not surprised that people really want a light and they really like the 2-lane. It seems to me that we will have to have a light, a roundabout or something at Lake Street and Allegan. And I guess we all know that 10 years from now, 1 or 2 lights or roundabouts will be there, and we have to think long-term. So I guess I would ask Larry, can you talk about the safety? What is safe? What are the what lane sizes? Can you sort of riff on that a little bit between the 2 choices that we have? If you look at it, I know that they're both safe. They have to be safe. You have a lot of regulations that you have to follow. But as an engineer, can you give us some guidance in terms of safety and public safety?
Yeah, I can give you some guidance and opinions, trying not to steer you one way direction or another. So the 3-lane configuration I'm showing here, I believe is safe. 11-foot lanes for this volume of traffic are narrow, okay? It's the minimum you'd want to do. We're going to be pushing people up against the delineator on one side and a raised sidewalk on the other. There's a benefit to this in that this will act as a visual barrier to slow people down. So it does have some traffic calming features inherent to it. And the other thing that I think negates or partially negates the narrow lanes is that we have an 11-foot center lane across the majority of the bridge that is not used as a center lane. And so people can really hug this line more in this situation with no danger of, hitting an oncoming vehicle. So the benefits are traffic calming. You maintain the 3-lane configuration fully across the bridge as it is now. We don't have the transitions from 3-lane to 2-lane and back to 3-lane. Those are all valid, I guess, comments about this. The 2-lane configuration obviously has 11-foot lanes, but wider shoulders, so people are going to be more comfortable driving across the bridge, although you are closer to oncoming traffic. I would suggest that the 2 lanes will lead to speeds that you're probably seeing now, or it's not going to provide that traffic calming because you are providing very large areas for traffic to flow. Obviously, we are providing more separation from the trail users, so that's a plus, and more separation from pedestrians that would be on this side. So those are basically the things I would think about when making this decision. So I'm not going to say there's one clear benefit, but one over the other. They're both would be safe. This one provides more separation from the non-motorized path. The other one will probably provide some more traffic calming benefit. And a traffic signal, I don't think is required, but certainly enhances safety.
And it's true, Larry, that we can do a traffic signal with either design. Even though we've got the 2-lane married to a signal, the fact is the 3-lane could also.
Yes, neither of these options would prohibit or limit you from placing a traffic signal in the future, or even now. So neither one do that. No, that's correct.
Okay. Does anyone else have any thoughts or questions?
I do. Larry, you just said that the traffic light would not be required for either option. I was under the impression that the 2-lane option would require a traffic light. Is that wrong?
Okay, so let me restate that. The 2-lane configuration, as we have discussed before, we took out the option of not having a traffic signal, and that was based on public safety comments that they would not support a 2-lane option without a signal.
Right.
So,
okay.
right, I mean, neither, what I should have said is neither, in my opinion, strictly for safety of pedestrians and due to the path require a traffic signal. The options that we've chosen, there's either a 2-lane with a traffic signal or a 3-lane without, or could potentially also have one if that were chosen.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Holly, this is Jerry Donovan.
Yeah.
I have a question for Mr. Fox or whoever. I just want to double check my math. On a 3-lane configuration, we have 33 feet devoted to, let's say, vehicular traffic. And on a 2-lane configuration, we have 29 feet. Is that accurate?
All right, so I'm going to go straight across the board here.
Okay.
We've got 7, 2, 9, 19, 21, 22, 9 is 31, 42, 53, 58 feet total to work with. So
Okay.
in the 2-lane option, we're having wider shoulders versus the 3-lane. So you're losing, you have 2 feet less of lane in this one. So you got 9, 11, and 11. So 22, 31 feet. In this one, you have 33. And that 2 feet that you're losing in this one is being or you're gaining in traffic lanes here, you're losing in non-motorized path. So here's the difference is 8-foot non-motorized path versus 10-foot non-motorized path. So the math should be the same for both, but it's just a matter of that where this vertical separation or delineator separating the trail goes is 2 feet further west in the 3-lane option.
Thank you.
I have a quick question too.
Go ahead, Kathy.
And then I can share some opinions later, but my question is, Larry, that you just mentioned that the 3-lane option had the advantage of that middle lane allows people to kind of go into it as there were any kind of safety issue or people walking or anything like that. Why would that be any different than the 2-lane, which are much wider lanes that people could move over in the same way as if they moved into that rusty colored center lane that doesn't get used? I'm sorry I worded it that way, but you know, what's the difference? A wider lane means people can move over as well. Am I right?
No, my point was that the 3-lane configuration provides some visual confinement to motorists that may result in people slowing down, some traffic calming benefit. But that, I mean, even though it's an 11-foot lane, is fairly narrow, they can hug this lane line. Now on this option, obviously then you have a much wider open feel as you're traversing because you've got a very wide shoulder. So you're not going to get as much of the traffic calming benefit from this option as you are when you're a little more visually confined.
Okay.
So I'm not saying, and obviously when you have 2 lanes of traffic side by side here opposing each other, you cannot go into this lane safely because that's opposing traffic. Your safety escape basically is this wide shoulder. So I'm not saying the 3-lane is safer than the 2-lane. I'm just saying it gives you a different visual as you're crossing, and your traffic speeds may vary based on that.
Okay. And what about the 3-lane that merges into Douglas's 2 lanes? It seems like that could cause, you talk about visual look and feel and all that. Wouldn't moving from a 3-lane down into that be more of a stress for tourists and drivers who don't know the area than just 2 to 2?
That's already in place, right? I mean, you already go from 3-lane to 2-lane in Douglas.
Yes, and there's been a lot of comments about it, but okay. So I see what you're saying. So we've been used to that. Okay.
John, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I actually had 2 questions. One, maybe Larry, you could reconfirm the MDOT compliance of these 2 options. I think you've mentioned that both designs would need some kind of vertical separation. We don't quite know what that is. So that's question number 1. And question number 2 is the 3-lane, you've allowed for 1 foot for the posts. And there really isn't much more room there. I guess the question is, if MDOT says the posts aren't enough, we need something more substantial. Is there room in that 3-lane for something more substantial? And if not, where would it likely come from?
Okay, trying to follow that question. So we have the same dimensions for delineators, clear zone. I guess I get what you're saying. If this had to be wider than 1 foot, in this 2-lane option, you have room in the shoulder to decrease and still maintain this, which is true. For this one, it would have to go into this clear zone. Now, I think at one of the meetings, and perhaps you were involved, I did show the Cut River Bridge crossing on US 2 in the UP where they have a pedestrian separation, which was approximately 1 foot. It might have been like 15 inches. So you can, that would probably be the maximum that they would require. So although the 1 foot may not cover entirely, it's probably pretty close.
Okay. And do you deem either of these compliant then going into the process then?
Well, I would say, and we've had this discussion before, the non-motorized path at 8 foot does require a design exception. I think we've talked about the reasons that we think is justifiable are the fact that you've got a pedestrian sidewalk directly along this whole area. So then really it becomes more of just a bike path issue. And the fact that previous standards and a lot of trails have been built at 8 feet. And the fact that there's a limited amount of space, and they have granted design exceptions down to 8 feet on several of our projects. Say like an underpass crossing in Otsego County and others. So although this is not technically compliant and would require a design exception, I think it would be approved. This 10-foot non-motorized path clearly meets the AASHTO standard.
And you think the vertical separation requirements would be similar between the two? You know, if they said one needed something more substantial, probably both would, or?
No, I would say that the 3-lane, if something more substantial were needed, more likely would be in the 3-lane. This one, because we do have the extra separation from the traffic, likely would not.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Craig Atwood has his hand up.
I just wanted to say for perspective, Blue Star Highway north of Maple Street is 11-foot lanes. We stripe 99% of our roads 11 foot, all but our highest commercial traffic volume roads. And we do have a couple striped at 10 feet, you know, lower volume, lower speed roads. But our typical standard is 11-foot lanes,
Okay.
which, you know, maximizes your shoulder width when you can get that. And then, as Larry alluded to, a narrower striped travel lane does have some traffic calming benefits to it, which is why we did 10 foot on a couple of our, like I said, lower volume, lower speed roads, just to try and get that extra benefit out of it. So.
Oh, that's good perspective. Thank you. Brian?
Just some additional perspective. I believe the national highway standard for like a federal highway or national highway is 12 feet. So if you're cruising down the highway, you're in a 12-foot lane likely.
Thank you. Okay. Does anybody else have any more questions or want to weigh in?
I don't have any questions, but I guess I will say a few comments. I've thought about this ever since I've been on the committee. And like you, Holly, it's been difficult. I go back and forth. There's pros and cons to everything, and this has not been easy. And I've especially thought, why should I weigh in? I'm in Douglas, and we only have a few feet on this whole thing, and I should shut up. But I started to rethink that. I thought, no, that's not at all fair, because we have put 100,000 and more, because we had a match on the CMAQ originally, and to our side of the trail. And so I do care how it flows and how it looks and what it's going to mean to the tri-community. While I don't have, to pay for that traffic light, I know that's a problem maybe for Saugatuck. I'm just talking now about what I think is the legacy in the long run. I have lived in Saugatuck on Lake Street, and I know what that traffic's like. I now live in Douglas, and I cross the bridge hundreds of times a day, going back and forth to people in Saugatuck and Holland and whatever. And I have studied this the best I can, and I think both options have their safety pluses. So for me, that's a neutral decision. I don't necessarily agree that the 3-lane is because the fire department prefers it, is the only way to look at this. And I'm a big fan of the fire department, and I do care about what they believe is safe. But I believe it's also the seconds it takes to get over the bridge and for the traffic to clear, for the vehicles and all those kinds of issues. Adding seconds to their response time is is bad. I wish that didn't have to happen. But there's hundreds of 2-lane bridges around this country that fire trucks and places have to navigate, and they find a way. And the chief was very, very clear that he could work with the other option as long as it had a light. And I know that he could. And I know there's other solutions about having vehicles on the other side, maybe over in the Douglas side, to help with quicker response. So there's ways around some of this, and they're both equally safe. Larry just went through, there's things on both sides that could be safer. So we have to pick one. So that leaves me, if the safety's equal, in my mind it is, then it comes down to some other factors. And there is a problem on Lake Street anyway, getting in and out. And I think a light will end up there eventually. Having lived there, all the festivals and all the things, to be regulated with lights is just safer and smarter. I've seen, I've ridden my bike. You can't get through there very easily, and it's scary. And I especially think of babies and carriages now. So I just think it's the better way to go as far as safety, myself, to have the light. But, and then the last thing I wanted to say is that, I'm not trying to be a visual nobody, but I'm a visionary. And that's just part of why I got on council. And it's to make a community that for years to come works. And I believe that the 2-lane, pure and simple, is going to be better for our economy. I believe that we'll get people just flocking to our area because of the beauty and the way we keep our communities. And I think the 3-lane, it's you're coming in and 2 of those lanes are tight. You've got the trail right there. It feels bad to go through such a tight area. I've been through it in Douglas. Ours is tight. The pot shots we got and stuff are not good. So that, to me, to have more shoulder, more area, more proper dividers, the right delineators, whatever it is, the aesthetic looks of it is our legacy. The safety part can be worked out. That's the way I see it. So I'm done with my little get on my haystack and talk, but I do think it's short-sighted if we don't think about the economy in that way and what the biking is going to mean and who it's going to bring in. And that means we ought to make it look right. So that's my opinion. Sorry.
That was really helpful, Kathy. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Ryan? No?
Sorry. I won't do it again.
You just had your left-hand turn signal on again. Okay. All right. Richard?
Yeah, if we're now going to start to kind of give our opinions and reasoning, then I can go ahead. John and I are here as representatives of the Friends organization. And of course, that includes many people from the tri-communities. And they have skin in this game because they've contributed a lot of time and money to get us this far and to come up with funds for the local match going forward. The mission of the Friends remains the same. That is to build a safe and attractive trail that will be enjoyed by many different users and to benefit our communities in a number of different ways. Our board met this week and we had a lengthy discussion about these options, much like we're doing today. We take very seriously the concerns of the emergency responders, but for reasons of safety and aesthetics, we agree with the vast majority of the members of the public that expressed opinions, and we prefer the 2-lane option for the Washington Lake Street segment. And I can elaborate on some of the reasons. Some of them have already come out. Concern about the spacing with the traffic lane, how close the trail would be. Kind of the feeling was the 3-lane option kind of squeezes the bike lane in there. The connection into Douglas, the look of the vertical separators that may be required. And we believe that, as Kathy indicated, there are ways to address the concerns of the emergency responders. And we've talked about some of those with the traffic signal and remote control, et cetera. At the same time, if the committee votes for the other option, the 3-lane, we will support that decision. I think you and we hear the voices of our residents who have been telling us, just get it done. And the worst thing at this point would be to miss the upcoming grant deadline and lose another year with the potential ramifications that has. We also agree with Kathy, and this came out, we should be thinking long-term, and because the trail's not going to be built for probably close to 2 years. So we should be thinking ahead how it's going to be used and what it's going to look like. Then whichever option the committee selects, we strongly urge the city to pursue installation of a traffic signal at Lake Street as soon as possible. We believe it'll greatly increase the safety of trail users, but also of motorists and of other pedestrians. According to the traffic engineer we spoke with, who's working with Larry, it will also improve traffic flow during peak times. And that was confirmed in some of the work that Fleece and Vandenbrink did a couple of years ago. We have almost 2 years before construction, so the city has time to plan for that signal and how to pay for it. The Friends are certainly willing to help in any way we can, short of paying the cost of it, because we've also got to raise the match at the same time. And then I'll stop there and we can talk about the Lake and Maple Street section afterwards, I imagine.
Okay. Would anybody else like to weigh in on this? Okay.
Holly?
Ken? Yeah.
I'm sorry, hang on just a minute here. There we go. Yeah, I'll weigh in on my preference. I think as far as the public safety aspect of this is concerned, we need to rely on our experts to give us advice on what is the best option. Even though both options might be acceptable, I know that Chief Janik is very much in favor of the 3-lane option versus the 2, because it provides a sure way of getting the equipment through that area. I'm not sure if, I believe I was looking at our diagrams here. It doesn't indicate whether the 2-lane option allows for the acceleration lane for those making a right turn off of Lake Street onto Blue Star. If it doesn't, and we don't have a light there, it would be a major drawback for us. The time before that acceleration lane was added onto Blue Star, we had backups from Blue Star back into Saugatuck almost to downtown. I live on the corner of that intersection, and there were times when we couldn't even exit our property because of the stopped traffic that were waiting for people to clear, both making right and left turns in that intersection. As far as the traffic light is concerned, the previous Fleece and Vandenbrink study indicated that it would actually, having a light there would actually possibly impede the flow of traffic through that intersection. We advised against doing it. Now, things may have changed since then, and I do support having the road commission do the study that they are doing about installing a traffic light at Lake and Blue Star, as well as Old Allegan and Blue Star. My belief is that if you put a light at Old Allegan and Blue Star and somehow synced it up with the light on Center Street in Douglas, you would provide enough traffic gaps that it would facilitate the flow of traffic from Lake Street to Blue Star, turning either right or left. So I think that would be the best solution, but I'm willing to wait to see how the Allegan Road Commission study ends up. So basically, I'm pretty strongly in favor of the 3-lane, particularly as it protects the acceleration lane going southbound on Blue Star. And, I think we can, through striping and signage and things such as that, and the traffic calming possibilities, I think we can make it safe for
Okay, thank you. Richard?
Oh, no, sorry, that's okay. Should have lowered my hand.
Okay. Okay, since Craig is on the line, you can't give us any insight into that traffic study, can you? I
Other
know,
than that, I've signed a contract with Hubble Roth and Clark to do the work, and approximately a month time frame is what they were looking at to have a preliminary report back to us.
okay. And Craig, that study is gonna be, well, we can talk about that later. Let's stick to the route. Okay, does anyone else want to weigh in on this particular route?
I just want to make one more comment. I could not understand all this, but it seems to me that a light there would help control those backups, because you can control the light. You can let, for 3 minutes, all the Lake Street people get out. Yes, some of the others couldn't get through right away, but that is only during really tough times of either the day or even of the season. So you've got to make a decision on a 1 month season or a 2 month season of high tourism. That's just something to think about as well, because, you know, I can't, again, if there's a red light there, it is going to back up on Lake Street, but it's already very slow to get into Saugatuck. Everyone knows you go 20 miles an hour, and that's just the way it is. You take your time, or you control the light to let more through during certain times. So I don't know that it would back it up that much. It might even help not back it up. I'm not sure.
Thank you. Okay, does anyone else have anything to add? Shall we just go around, go down the list and see what we're leaning towards? Is that how we want to do this?
Holly, do you want to do that before you take a vote, or do you want to just go straight to your vote? You have two options, so.
Are we ready to take a vote?
Jerry, what's your thoughts?
I'm ready to vote. But prior to that, let me just interject this. I have the benefit, Ken Trester's on one corner of the bridge, I'm on the other. And I'm going to lay my card out and say I'm voting 3-lane, and it's a no-brainer for me. And the reason I say that is I see 2-lane here in Douglas in action all the time. And there have been consistent issues from the get-go. And I know this, I yield a lot to public safety. I'm not comfortable saying, hey, chief, this is what we're going to do, deal with it. Go ahead and drive on the bike path. No worries. Okay. I struggle with that. The other thing becomes on a 2-lane configuration where you have a shoulder of 4.5 feet, you got a construction truck that may be 10 feet in diameter. They break down. Now suddenly, to get around that truck, this person has to swerve into the lane of oncoming traffic. And I'm not comfortable with that either. Right now, we have a situation at my intersection where when a school bus turns right off Union onto Blue Star, they have to swerve into the lane of oncoming traffic, which I find unforgivable. We are working and we have the project set up to build those corners back to alleviate that. I have personally assisted the Douglas Police Department on multiple occasions when a vehicle breaks down, helping direct traffic to alternate routes. the 3-lane configuration, to me, that gets my vote.
Okay, thank you. It's a hard decision.
It is.
It really is. Okay, should we just go to a vote? Just do it? Just rip the Band-Aid off and do it?
Holly,
Yes.
Holly, is, knowing, the chief, I don't think he would have said what he said if he didn't mean it. So I don't think it's as far as us saying deal with it. I don't think any of us wants to be that way. Is Mike Betts or someone from the fire department on board here? I just would like to hear their opinion again, but I don't think I see him. I
Mike,
know Greg, the chief, can't be on.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, hi, Mike.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Good, how are
Thank
you?
you, and thank you, Brenda, for clarifying, because I've never felt deal with it either. He
No.
said clearly he could work with both
Yeah,
options.
he would, he's
So
a very,
I never would do
Yeah.
that. So,
he's very straightforward. If he can't, if it's,
yes.
yeah. So anyway, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
I guess, well, what was the question there? I can try to clarify.
Well, the chief had said in one of our meetings that he could go with the 2-lane. I mean, he prefers the 3 for safety reasons,
Right.
but he could work with it. He did not tell us not to do it or that it wouldn't be safe. So I just after you've listened to what everyone has said, I just wanted to hear what you think.
Well, a couple things, like our position at the fire department is that the 3-lane would definitely be a lot more feasible for us, considering the issues that we've had in Douglas and continue to work around, just to get people out of the way. Chief Jang's position was, if you chose the 2-lane, then our preference would be a light to try to help alleviate things. So I guess I don't want to speak for Chief Janik, but I don't want you guys to make your decision based on us either solely. The only thing that I'd like to clarify is when it comes to driving on the bike path, our position isn't to drive on the path to run calls. That kind of what we've talked about at an officer level that's what I call the last resort, that we have no other options. And then you're double checking that then, because for us to go on the bike path, now we're dispersing pedestrians. That's going to have its own issues in itself. So as an alternative for us to get through, putting vehicles on that path is going to be a last resort,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's not our first option.
Right.
My understanding, our position is our preference would be the 3 lanes. But we would, and if you went with the 2-lane, then our preference would be a light, knowing that comes with its own inherent issues.
Yeah.
And costs. So I hope that
Thank you.
answers it. Sorry.
Thanks.
thanks for weighing in, Mike. All right. Are we ready? We ready?
Yes.
All right. Brenda Marcy, what do you think?
Me first.
You're on top. It's
Okay.
yes. 2-lane or 3-lane?
First, I just want to say to everybody who's commented, you clearly have done your homework. You really know the layouts really well. I just have really appreciated everyone's comments because everyone's brought up things I didn't think about. So I am going to go with the 2-lane with a light.
Okay.
That's my vote. But that's not in stone. So that's how I'm voting right now.
Okay. Kathy Meridian.
It is a very hard decision, and
Yep.
I appreciate everybody's perspectives and points of view. But I think if we look back in 8 years, we'll be glad we did it in 2 lanes, or 10 years, or for the future. I also believe those other issues are very workaroundable, and we have such a great fire department and EMS group that they just know how to work the system. They know how to clear traffic. They're professionals. The bridge is very short, and I believe that it will be fine and we'll see very little impact in the end scheme. So I am going for the 2-lane as well.
Okay. Cindy Osmond.
I'm going to vote for the 3-lane because, in part because of the comments that Mr. Donovan had to make, and in part because it seems to me that if the 3-lane didn't work out, it would be easy to change the 2-lane. We're not creating any more bridge and we're not taking any bridge away. So really it's striping and bollards.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Ken Trester?
Yeah, thank you, Cindy, for that argument about being able to reconfigure the bridge in a pretty economical way. And that's a good point. Obviously, I'm in favor of the 3-lane option for all the reasons I expounded on before.
Okay, thank you. Jerry Donovan?
For reasons stated previously, 3 lanes. And in part, I just want to advocate that good points are being made that you can always change it, because that's what we're doing in Douglas right now, is we're changing things. So my feeling is, based on Mr. Betts's comments, as well as what we're experiencing here, you go 3 lanes.
Okay, thank you. John Adams?
Well, I respect the input of the EMS representatives and do feel that the signal needs to be considered with regards to their needs. I vote for the 2-lane for the reasons that Richard outlined earlier.
All right, thank you. Richard?
Yeah, as I said before, our board has instructed us to vote for the 2-lane option. I guess I just note that it works both ways. If the 2-lane does not work out for some reason, we can always revert back to the 3 lanes the way it exists now. But we vote for the 2-lane.
Okay, which now I have to vote. I think I am going to vote for the, honest to God, this is such a hard decision. I think I'll vote for the 2-lane. Which means that I think we're gonna go with the 2-lane because it's then 5-3 or 5-3. Four, 5, 1, 2, 3. All right, it looks like the 2-lane with the light carries.
Probably just as a formality, if you wouldn't mind making a motion, getting a second and going forward with an official vote on that for the record.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that for this route of this piece of the route, that the committee has chosen the 2-lane with the traffic light over the 3-lane. Is that good enough, Ryan?
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay,
I'll second. This is John Adams.
okay. All right, thank you. All right, let's move on.
Oh, I'm sorry. You called the vote. You can ask for any more discussion. Sorry, it's just a formality. Ask for any more discussion and then go call a vote.
Okay, any more discussion?
I have a question. There were 2 votes cast that said 2-lane with a light. What if the light doesn't come? What happens to those?
It's a fair question.
It has to come what, through Saugatuck paying for it and approving it, is that correct?
Yeah,
Well, and it would require some data to show that a light is or is not going to facilitate safety and traffic flow. And
Right.
without that study and that data, I'm not going to be assuming that we're going to put a light at that intersection.
yeah, it's a fair, you know, it's a fair point. I mean, I wonder if we, even though we just took this vote, I wonder if we shouldn't suggest the 3-lane and fall back on the 2.
Well, technically, we didn't take a vote yet, Holly. So you're, you know,
That's That's
we're
true.
pending. So yeah, we could rethink that.
I mean,
You know,
both,
Holly, if I could just interject, again, even when we put it in front of the public, we said 2-lane gets you a stoplight. You could have 3 lanes and a stoplight.
True.
And I don't understand why that wasn't offered or clarified at any point in time. Because as Mr. Fox from C2AE said, right off the bat, we got overwhelming support for the 2-lane, but that may have come as a result of the stoplight being factored in. So anybody who didn't know and looks at that form says, well, the only way we're getting a stoplight is if we go 2-lane.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I mean, there is, people would like to see a light there, and Ken's not wrong either. We are still waiting on data from the county. So in a way, I wish that we weren't looking at a light necessarily as part of the bike trail, because I feel like this bike trail is a heavy enough lift without the light. And it's adding a layer of difficulty, because I think it's a public opinion, and you can't necessarily put a light there based on public opinion. So there's issues with that. What are you going to say, John?
I was just going to ask for clarification from Larry. I think we've already talked about this, but you know, if we were to put the grant in, let's just say, based on the 2-lane, on the discussion we've had to this point, and then the signal for whatever reason wasn't feasible, I'm assuming we could change the application. Is that an accurate statement, and would that be confusing or work against us? What would be the impact?
Do you have any guidance on that?
I didn't hear you.
I say, do you have any guidance on that?
That's a hard one. I guess I need clarification, because I thought the whole idea of the light attached to the 2-lane was really more an emergency light to stop traffic, and not necessarily a traffic signal that I think the community might be interested in having. So I guess that's something, I guess, we're not clear on. That was my understanding of the traffic light associated with the bike trail, was just related to stopping traffic so they could clear traffic. Could that happen without, I guess, a full traffic study saying that you need a traffic signal?
It was my understanding that that signal, you couldn't have a first responder signal without a traffic signal.
Yeah, it's really a matter of function. So all of the equipment and lights and everything has to be put in place for the emergency vehicles. It doesn't have to be put into operation as a traffic signal. I mean, it can just be a flashing yellow, flashing red on Lake. And then when, you know, the emergency vehicle comes through, then it goes into a stop mode. So the operation of it, I guess, can be a different discussion, but the full, I mean, it's not going to save any money. You have to put all of the components in order to make it work for either.
But Holly,
Yep, go ahead, Kim.
but if you do this, Larry, without the traffic signal, on this configuration, you are eliminating the acceleration lane and the left turn lane. Is that correct?
No, so both options have the same, are keeping the acceleration lane. And once you get off the bridge on the north end, we're going off and putting the trail where the sidewalk is. So you get off the bridge and then you get onto the sidewalk area and have a 10-foot trail. So
And
neither one,
I'm sorry, that's the 2-lane option?
that's both options.
Both options.
Yeah, we had that discussion before, and you decided as a group that we did not want to mess with the acceleration lane.
Okay.
All right, Richard.
Yeah, I just point out that both options do have a risk. I mean, Jerry's right that, it's possible the city could decide not to install the traffic light for whatever reason, even though it seems to be strongly favored by the public. But it's also possible under the 3-lane option that we won't reach agreement with MDOT on what kind of vertical separation there's going to be. So that might not happen either.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to complicate anything, Holly, but I just want to clarify for my own thoughts that I've maybe heard some things today that I'm not quite sure. So we put these together on this local share options. So I'm not sure if Richard said on the 2-lane option with the traffic signal that the Friends of the Blue Star Trail would not be willing to pay this local share amount, that they would be expecting the city of Saugatuck to pay $120,000 on the traffic signal.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that might influence your voting today. I just would like some clarification because I thought that Saugatuck and Saugatuck Township were going to put in $10,000 each, and then the rest would be committed by the Friends of the Blue Star Trail of the total local share amount. Am I wrong in that?
Well, I think the party on the hook for that light is going to be the city of Saugatuck. Does that have to be spelled out differently in the grant? Because that could make a difference.
Yeah. If city of Saugatuck is committing $120,000 for the traffic signal, you would need that committed as part of your resolution and adopted and submitted with the grant application.
All right, well, that's going to change my vote. Thank you very much.
So I don't know, Richard, is that correct that the Friends of the Blue Star is not willing to pay this full local share less the 20,000? That the 120, your position of the Friends is that is purely city of Saugatuck.
Yeah, John, you want to do that?
Yeah, we've discussed the signal, and there are a couple of issues. I think the answer to your question is that's correct. We are not willing to pay for the signal. That reflects both, substantial upfront costs related to paying for the trail itself. I think it also reflects the fact that the signal at Lake Street, while providing benefits to the trail, I think the reasons to put the signal there have much broader benefits to the communities and traffic in general than just the trail. So it seemed unfair to us to ask us to pay for the signal.
Okay, well, if that's the case, I am going to change my vote to the 3-lane because I just think that this trail committee cannot bear the weight of this traffic light. I think we need to separate that, and we need to do what is expeditious to build this trail as the community has asked us to do. So I think that the 3-lane is the most agreeable, and it, we'll have to look, as a city, we have to look at that light, and we have to have more data, and we have to, I cannot commit that kind of money right now as part of this grant application. It's too heavy, it's too much to do in the next 2 weeks. So that's a game changer for me.
Holly,
Yes.
if you, okay, so I had to step away for a really important call. If, is there a way to vote for the 2-lane without committing to the light? I mean, don't we have time to think about that or not? And don't a lot of the citizens of Saugatuck want that light, not for the bike trail?
Yes. And I'm not saying that we won't build that light at some point.
Right.
But we go, but what, these are the pies we have, right? So
Yeah.
we have binary choice. We have A or B. And we can't, I can't just come up with $120,000 in the next 2 weeks and commit that. That's without a study, without, I mean, it's too much.
But why would you have to do that? This is why I'm confused.
That's what Larry just said, because basically these funding, the numbers that we're looking at, that money the money for the light would have to come from my city. So I would not be giving 10,000, I would be giving 120 or 150,000 or 160,000. And I am not in a position to do that. I'm not in a position to do that.
Larry, are you talking about before we even submit a grant?
Talking about with the grant submission, there's a resolution that's basically commits to the funding.
Okay.
And so we need to show a funding breakdown. And so if the city of Saugatuck is expected to contribute 120,000 for the non-participating portion of the signal, that would be spelled out in that resolution. So it's a
commitment.
It's a commitment. It's not raising the money and
Right.
money, but it's a commitment.
But Larry, does the signal have to be included as part of this project?
I think the way we presented this is you previously decided we did not want to proceed with a 2-lane without a signal. That the signal was inherent with that alternative. So to me, I don't know how you can go, well, you're the committee, you can go back and propose a 2-lane without a signal, but you have heard from the chief that that is way down on the list of what they would support.
Right.
Okay. And I've got Joe Fry with his hand up.
I just had a question for clarification. So the light right now can be a part of the 2-lane or the 3-lane option, Larry. Do we need to include that? Because as Holly mentioned, that most likely would come from the city of Saugatuck, but for the grant process, do we want to include that in it or take that out and then we can talk as municipalities, on, possible other solutions for later down the line? Does that make sense?
Ryan?
Yeah, it's the question, Larry, but I'll just chime in quick. Joe, I think the issue with that is the way that this has been presented to the public in the open house and other forums is that the 2-lane option came with the traffic light, and that was for emergency purposes. And if you change that, I think that would be a misrepresentation of what you've been telling folks.
Okay, I just wanted to ask that question.
Okay. Anybody else?
Okay, Holly, just to let you know where you're at. You have the current motion on the floor is for the 2-lane. And then we got into the discussion of, does that include a traffic light as part of the motion? I believe it does. So you can call for the vote. If I'm my math is correct, you're gonna come out possibly 4-4, but that's the motion on the floor is for the 2-lane option with traffic light.
All right, so let's take a vote then for the 2-lane with the traffic light. Brenda Marcy,
Yes.
Kathy Moradian,
Well, I guess I have one more question. I want this done more than winning what my preference is.
Right. I
Because
agree.
both of these I can live with. And if Saugatuck's not ready to do this, period, which it sounds like as a 2-lane, the way it stood and the way we presented it to the public, then I guess I feel kind of forced to go the 3-lane because I really want it done. That's what the overwhelming public wanted. But they also wanted the 2-lane, so I'm torn. But I guess I'll go, I'd like to have that answered. Is it going to delay if this is a stalemate? Where are we? If it's going to be a stalemate, I'll go to the 3-lane.
I believe that it is going to be a stalemate. So,
But so if it's a stalemate, Larry Fox, what happens? I mean,
well, do you mean, is the vote going to be a stalemate? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, I'm saying that if it is going to hold up what we present to MDOT and the grant and keep this thing moving along, I'm moving to 3.
Okay.
I don't want to stop the progress. So what I'm asking, is there any way around not delaying and still vote what I really want? I guess, because if it's about delaying it, then I'm switching my vote.
All right, well, can we stay in discussion and then go back to the vote, or do we have to finish the vote since I started the
You
vote?
should finish the vote.
Right.
All right, sorry, Kathy, I think we have to finish. I know Richard wants to weigh in and Kathy asked a question, but I'm not the Robert's Rule of Order. I am the Robert's Rule of Order idiot, so I don't know how to do this.
Well, I don't think we should have gone to the vote after what you said, changing your vote. We didn't get to talk after you did. So
There was time for I don't know, that's true. There was opportunity for discussion after you heard from Holly. So yeah, you finish the vote, Holly, and then you can decide if you want to do something else as you continue with the meeting.
Okay, sorry, Kathy. So, do you vote for the
I guess I'll
yes
go-
or no?
I guess I'll go the 3-lane then, because I don't want to be one of the waysayers and delayers of this thing moving forward, period.
Okay, I understand that. Okay, Cindy Osmond,
The motion is for the 2-lane, so I vote no.
okay. Ken,
I vote no.
okay. Jerry,
I vote no.
John,
I gotta admit, I appreciate the dilemma that Kathy just discussed. We obviously want to see it go through as well. But our board feels like we need to look long-term and vote on the benefits to the trail users. So I vote yes.
okay. Richard,
Yeah, I'm not clear on what I'm voting for or against, so I'll abstain.
Motion on the floor is for the 2-lane option with traffic light.
Yes or no on that?
Yep,
Yeah.
that was the motion for approving or recommending to council's 2-lane with the traffic light.
I'll vote yes.
okay. And I'm gonna vote no. So the 3-lane carries.
Well, point of order.
Yes.
I think we need another motion in favor of the 3 lanes. Ryan, would that not be correct?
That would be great, and that would offer some opportunity for additional discussion if people feel like they missed that opportunity with the last vote.
Ken, you want to make that motion?
I would move that we recommend adoption of the 3-lane option, alternative option.
Okay,
I'll second.
Jerry, second?
Yeah.
Okay. So we can open up the conversation.
I never got a clear answer on if I stuck to my original vote, what would happen next? Are we just in a, after all these months of being a tri-community, here we are, what would happen? Would you have nothing to present to MDOT?
And you want me to try to help
Yeah.
out here?
Go ahead, Ryan, because it's kind of a, yeah, it's not an engineering question, really.
No, it's not. It's a process question, I think. So,
Yes.
remember that you're a committee that makes recommendations to the councils, and ultimately the councils decide. In this particular case, the topic you're on is the bridge crossing. So who weighs in on this one? Douglas in the city of Saugatuck. What you heard from Holly was new information and perhaps not a clear understanding that the Friends group was not willing to commit to funding a traffic light as part of the capital costs with the 2-lane option with traffic light, which has been presented, in the open house, and that's the way it's just been presented to the public. And so with that new information, Holly, it's my understanding Holly is saying that she's not willing to vote for that on the city council level because that is a very heavy lift, and also without a traffic study to support that heavy lift, that puts her in a very weakened position, and that would ultimately potentially delay a council vote. That's my understanding of what's just transpired here in the last 10 minutes. Holly, please help me if I'm.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Okay, John?
I'd just like to clarify that, well, this may be news to Larry. I think we've been pretty consistent on the signal throughout these discussions, including with you, Holly. So this is not a backtrack or a reversal of a prior position.
That's
What
true.
I understand your concern, and I understand your position very well. It's a difficult lift, but just that clarification.
Yes, I would, for the record, John, that I always knew that was the case. I just didn't know that we had to write that check today. That's what I did not know. I thought that was a cost that could be borne over the next few years, but if it has to be in stone by October 13th, when the grant goes in, then that is a heavy lift for the next 2 weeks for this, for me going back to my council. That's.
Okay. And I understand. Yep.
Can I, Holly, on that, what do you think your council will fight it or something? Because the overwhelming majority wanted it. You just stated that. So
I believe that my council wants that light, and I believe if we have to pay for the light, I would like to just pay for the light and go through the process of paying for the light and having the data for the light.
Okay.
I just don't want the light to crush the trail. I cannot write a check. Ken and I cannot give you $120,000 today. We can't do that. And we know we can't do that. I mean, that's a different conversation than what I have been having. It's a completely different conversation.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean that we won't do a light, and it doesn't mean that we won't do a light in a year or in 2 years. But I think the conversation of the light has gotten ahead of the data and maybe to the trail, even though I like the 2-lane and it is my preference. I'm just not in a position financially and data wise to make that call. Joe, you've had your hand up, I think, for a very long time. I'm sorry. Did you have something to say? No?
I'm not sure he ever took it down after last time.
All right, maybe he's just on a call or something. So do we need to take a vote?
Yes.
All right. So we are voting in support. What is the vote exactly? It's in support of the 3-lane?
You got it.
It is. It is to recommend adoption of the three-lane option.
Okay. In recommendation of the three-lane option, Brenda Marcy, she had to jump on the phone with the doctor, but she said she's voting no, but I don't know if that counts if she's not here. How does that work?
I don't know what the charter is for voting by proxy. I would say that she doesn't get a vote.
Okay. Kathy Moradian,
Yes.
Cindy Osmond,
Yes.
Ken Truster,
Yes.
Jerry Donovan,
Yes.
John Adams,
No.
Richard Donovan,
No.
okay. The three-lane carries.
You vote, Holly. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I vote yes. So, all right, it looks like the three-lane is going to be the chosen preference. So what do I need to do now?
You have the alternate as of the lane option that's still going to be on the table somewhat. So we'll take the recommendation for the three-lane option. We need, well, we'll kind of get into the next steps here, what are needed from the other municipalities on your agenda. But we would need a council vote by the city of Village of Douglas to support that recommendation, as well as the city of Saugatuck via resolution. But we have the recommendation at this point to bring to councils.
Okay, so we don't need to do anything else and we can move on.
From the design selection for the bridge component, that's correct. You can move on to your next section.
Okay, Larry, can you lead us in that conversation? Oh, you're muted, Larry.
Okay, thanks. So this is the next section to the north from Lake to Maple. This area in magenta is the area where we're specifically talking about where the two options are, with the first being the at-grade boardwalk, which provides the full ASHTO separation from the edge of the paved shoulder, which then does require construction of either an at-grade boardwalk or alternately a sheet pile or some type of retaining wall with a railing to construct the trail because of the steep slope. That one was I guess the preferred option from the public information, although it is more costly. Second option is to try to squeeze that area to not build as much onto the slope, and by doing that, to create a vertical separation between the travel lane and the path by constructing a curb and gutter and a relocated guardrail section to provide the less than the 5-foot separation from the edge of the paved shoulder. So actually we're eliminating the paved shoulder, we're putting in concrete curb and gutter, adding guardrail, and then getting our 2-foot clear zone outside of that. So the real change is, instead of being 18 foot 4 inches from the existing lane line in this option, we're saving about 7 feet of going out onto that slope. Okay. So I guess to be fair, we should look at the cost difference. Oh, I didn't pull that up, but it was about $60,000 difference. Oh, I know where it is. The route descriptions. So it was about $675 with the full separation. That's the at-grade boardwalk, and about $600 with the reduced separation, curb and gutter.
Okay, I'm gonna just open up the floor for conversation. John?
Just a clarification. I believe there's still under the boardwalk option, there's still a retaining wall to the north. Is that right, Larry? But it would still be, the trail would still be completely separate in that north section there, before you hit Maple.
Yeah, either option has this typical cross section for the north part. It's really where we have the big drop off in that magenta area where it's the difference.
And that separation from the road would be consistent throughout.
Yeah, in the north section, we would be able to get to 5 feet.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Me,
Go ahead, Ken.
Larry, do you have any kind of estimate of the life cycle, the extent of life on that boardwalk, like when it would have to be replaced?
Yeah, it's probably a 20-year life on it. So, you know, it does certainly require additional maintenance. My inclination would be that you would bid either or both the retaining wall and boardwalk section. If you were to choose this, these really go together. No, am I looking at the right thing? No, this one, we have a note here that just says this can be a retaining wall with a rail or an at-grade boardwalk. And I would encourage that during the design, if this were the route chosen or the alternative chosen, that you would bid both and then use judgment as to, you know, if the retaining wall is just slightly higher and still fits in the budget, definitely go with that. So then you're eliminating the maintenance option on the boardwalk.
So Larry, if I'm honest, I don't really have much of an opinion about this. I mean, is there like any advantage to one or the other aesthetically or structurally? I mean, how
Yes.
do you make this decision?
Right, we've had these discussions before and you've kind of chosen to try to be AASHTO compliant where you could.
Mhm.
Obviously, we just made that alternate decision on the bridge. But if I were to give you guidance, I would steer you in this direction.
Okay, and that is a point, isn't it? Because since we're not AASHTO compliant on the bridge, don't we need to be AASHTO compliant, or we should be AASHTO compliant for the other sections?
Where you have the option, yes. And Craig might want to weigh in on this too, whether this really is acceptable or desired by the road commission is to have guardrail against, you know, the southbound lane, as opposed to keeping the shoulder as it is, and then having the separation with the trail separate.
This is from Lake to Maple, right, Larry?
That's correct. Oh, that's right.
That's the city of Saugatuck still.
You're right. Sorry.
I'll keep my mouth shut for now.
Okay, does anybody have any suggestions or questions? Okay, let's, can we just vote then? Is that all right? Can I make a motion? How do I do this?
Yeah, you can, last time for your previous vote, you canvassed the board just to get their sense and then you took it to a vote. You can
Okay,
do that again, or
right.
you can just go straight to a vote. It's up to you.
okay, let's do a quick canvas then. John, what do you think?
Our board is going to favor complete separation from the road and the safety that brings. So it'd be the boardwalk option. Although if I heard Larry correct, it's still possible that could be a retaining wall under that option. Did I hear you right, Larry? Or
Yes.
yeah, okay.
We would design a bit of both ways. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, same for you, Richard, boardwalk?
Yes, please.
Okay, Kathy?
Boardwalk,
Okay, Ken?
Boardwalk.
Okay, I'm gonna lean towards the boardwalk as well, and we've lost Jerry and Brenda. Cindy,
No preference.
okay, no preference. Okay, I would like to make a motion to can vote on the boardwalk design.
I'll second.
Thank you. Kathy,
Yes,
Cindy,
Yes,
Ken,
Yes.
Jerry, oh, Jerry's gone. John,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So looks like it's like Monopoly and the boardwalk wins. What do I need to do now for procedure for Robert's rules?
You're good.
All right,
Well,
can we move on?
yeah, great job.
Okay, thank you. Larry, you want to take us into our next?
Sure. So
Item.
this is a discussion now on the funding. So
Hey,
you have-
Holly, excuse me, Larry, could I just ask one quick question before we move from the design? It's not really under consideration, but the boardwalk just south of Old Allegan, and maybe Craig's still on the line. I noticed it looks like the county completely mowed down that section where we have a boardwalk. You know, it doesn't look like wetlands. Does that change the thinking at all on that? I know, you know, more details are to follow, but that's about 10% of the cost of the project right there. And it's now mowed down to basically the ground.
What's your question, John?
I don't know. Are you able, if those are official wetlands, would you be cutting them down, or does that not have any impact on what you do with that area?
We can do maintenance work like that, especially for safety consideration of sight distance at the intersection. I mean, we're not disturbing the wetland, we're just maintaining the vegetation alongside the road, essentially.
Okay, so it still could be wetlands. It's
Correct. The wetland impacts are more to do with disturbing the soil in this situation, I would say.
okay. Thank you.
And I would say, John, that during design, there'll be a delineation. And of course, if you don't need as much boardwalk, then you don't do it, you know? You gotta
Right.
minimize that, right?
Right. Thanks.
Okay, so we're moving on, Holly, to funding.
Yep.
Emily, you might as well unmute because you're going to be needed here. Okay, so we previously had been talking about 50 and 60% tap. And then we have now expanded our discussion to include 65% or 70% tap. So trying to maximize grant versus local share. So we've gone at this on previous projects in a number of ways. One being starting with the local share and what can you afford on the local share, and then backing into what, you know, grant percentage, recognizing that the more match you put in, the better score or likelihood you have of being approved. And I guess, Emily, minimum you would recommend would be 30%. Yeah.
Correct. You can go by if you look at their guidelines, you can do a 20%, but I don't know very often that gets approved.
So we've just provided some more options. Now it kind of comes down to what's feasible for the Friends and the local units of government to commit. So I've heard already that both the township and city appear willing to commit $10,000 each. So then it sounds like then the Friends pick up the remainder of that to move this forward. So we're looking at trying to be competitive, but also recognizing that you have some limitations on how much you can raise. And then also that there's no guarantee that costs couldn't be higher and when it's actually bid. And so you don't want to commit to the ultimate maximum that you could ever raise. You probably want to leave a little bit of, buffer there. Emily, anything to add to that?
No, I think that sounds good.
Okay, so these are the way it shakes down based on what you're going for TAP. Again, the city of Saugatuck and Saugatuck Township are going to apply for $300,000 MNRTF. So we're counting on those as part of our financing package. And so these are the numbers you really need to be concerned about for your application. So you can go with what we would consider kind of the realistic minimum of 30% or somewhere higher depending on what you think you can afford to commit.
Okay, so I'm gonna hand this over to John and Richard since they are our community match. And I just want to make the point that Larry said to me, he's usually always works with municipalities, and this is the first time that he's worked with an organization like the Friends, which means that we are in a very nice position that we have a group of local residents who are our community match. So
we've had community match before, but usually it's much lower percentage. So this is a wonderful position to be in. Kudos to the Friends.
yeah. So
Thanks for those comments. I rather than kind of give you an answer, I'd like to maybe tee up some of the things we've been talking about amongst our board. And we view the grants as perhaps a little bit intertwined rather than separate decisions. First of all, we've talked about maximizing, the available funds to our communities from these outside grants. So we're very conscious, while we want to get these grants, we don't want to leave money on the table. I mean, this is outside money. This is good for our communities. We, generally would like to maximize these as much as possible, all else equal. Recognizing the limitations to that. And as an organization, we've got a lot of trail to build. So we're looking down the road as well as at this one. We have had a number of conversations with grant coordinators, and I'm sure Emily can weigh in. None of them will tell you what to do for sure. In general, those discussions have talked about TAP grants between 60 and 70%. And so those are kind of the numbers that we've been throwing around. One of the concerns I personally have, and I think our board shares, is what happens if we don't get one of the trust fund grants. We do know a couple of years ago, we put a trust fund grant in for the township. It never went to decision, but I believe it was relatively competitive. I know the city also has put in trust fund grants in the last couple of years that they were not successful with that. So it's certainly possible we might not get one of these. And then the question is, then what do we do? So while our friends, I think, are comfortable with, some of the range here, maybe down to 60% TAP in terms of making that money available, if suddenly we were not to get one of those trust fund grants, that's 300,000. That's a huge ask, and it would come late in the process, leaving very little room to raise that money. So we kind of view these grants as kind of intertwined, and within reason, it makes us want to stretch a little and make sure, again, we don't leave money on the table through TAP. Again, if we go between 50 and 65% TAP, that's equal to one of those trust fund grants. So, I guess that's our overall objective, not to leave money on the table within reason. I'm not sure where that leaves us in terms of exact percentage, but we think there's incentive to try to maximize these TAP grants even beyond what we feel we could raise. And again, the other issue is the cost might come in higher. So that would leave room for some leeway on the local share. And I don't know if Larry and Emily can add to what they've already said, or that's just something we got, uncertainty is something we have to deal with. But
Emily, do you have a sense, what's the likelihood that DNR would grant the two trust fund applications at the maximum amount for the same project, even though they're submitted by different jurisdictions?
You know, the trust fund still has trails as a priority, so you get extra points for them. And so that's a good thing. I don't know. They do look at if you've gotten grants before. So the trust fund has a whole different point system than TAP has. I think they would, my gut would be they would either approve both or neither, but I don't know. This is a little different situation, so I'm not sure. We did meet with the trust fund staff. They think it's a good project. The staff thought it was a good project. So it's hard to say. I think it
is it all is it all or nothing, or they could grant a lesser amount, right?
No, they don't typically do that. The trust fund doesn't. Neither of these grant sources typically do that.
Okay.
The trust fund, they could only approve one, so that could happen. They could just approve one, which might be their way of saying we support the project, but not at that level. I think it's interesting because the township, it goes through a park property. I think that has like a really good, they're like almost different applications, where the Saugatuck City piece is a real transportation piece along Blue Star Highway, connecting these other parts of the trail. And then the township has this park element, which I think it'll help score higher points. So I think they both should do well. It depends on your history with the trust fund, how many grants you've gotten before. There's a whole bunch of different things related to the point system with the trust fund that I haven't looked at in this community to know, where you would score.
How far back do they look? Do you know, Emily? How many years, or is there a standard?
There is, a big thing is that you've always done what you said you've done. Like if you did anything where you converted park property to not park property, that will limit your, you'll get negative points for that. And then there is something on how many grants you've gotten in the past, but I'm not sure what the numbers are.
And does it matter if those were for acquisitions versus transportation projects, or to the type of project matter?
I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to give you wrong information. I don't have that in front of me. So
I will say, I agree with everything Emily said. And there's no guarantee they would commit both. I will say just that we have had a project where there was TAP that went through two different townships, and each township was awarded trust fund. So it's not like for sure they wouldn't consider both, but I can't say that they would approve one over the other. In the most recent project we had, they approved both. But again, I'm not trying to say there's a guarantee. I'm just saying it doesn't preclude approval of both.
well, and typically they are working with TAP and trust fund work and talk together. So when TAP is going through and scoring and looking at it, they're talking to the trust fund staff. So, that those conversations are going on sort of before they make decisions.
So would that imply we could adopt the TAP grant depending on that feedback from the trust fund, or would that be feasible?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that.
Would we be able to adopt the trust fund grant request based on the feedback from the trust fund? Obviously, the decision on trust fund would happen last, right? But I mean, if you say they're talking and the trust fund saying, I don't see two of these happening, I mean, would we have the opportunity to change the TAP request?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So
All right.
I can ask that question, but.
Okay. In the interests of kind of moving things along, can we agree. Emily, when we talked earlier today, you made a suggestion of going for 37%.
No, I made a suggestion of going lower, it's what John just said, very similar, like go a little lower. So if the prices increase, then you would have more flexibility. So
Yeah.
I was saying if you were going to go at 40%, I would say go at 37. But if you were thinking of going at, 35%, then go at 33, that was, I don't know enough about the Friends and their ability to raise money. So it would be up to them.
Okay. So guys, what's your bottom line?
I guess I would ask, in the absence of a bottom line, what would you recommend in terms of TAP, in terms of all the things that have been discussed? It's not just a dollar amount. I think, we don't know the actual cost here. We don't know the other grants. Obviously more leeway, more flexibility to make that local share possible is better. But you want to get the grants. So we're leaning towards a higher number, 60 to 70% is what we talked about with our board.
Emily, I guess there's nothing wrong with the 70% grant application that's going to put them competitive. It just is not like the most competitive, right? 30% is pretty average range.
Yeah, I think you could. And I have heard TAP say, like, they'll come back and say, well, we think they should, sometimes they'll ask for more money. I hate to say this. Sometimes they'll say, like, well, we think Saugatuck's a wealthy area and they should raise more money. And I know they shouldn't say that, but I have heard them say stuff like that. So then you could come back and say, okay, we can increase our local match at that time. So that would be a way to do it.
Yeah, so you could do the 70% TAP application at this point, or go to 68 or something like that. And then, of course, if you get rejected and they say, you have the opportunity next round to increase that. There's nothing wrong with trying to be conservative and, like you said, not leave money on the table.
Yeah.
It's a crapshoot, and of course, that the higher you start out with, the better chances you have of scoring. But we can't give you guidance on how much 5% buys you, in terms of being awarded, and it depends on the competition every time they get submitted. What the other projects look like.
Yeah, and just so you all know, like the trust fund has an actual point system where they have not, like, you can see exactly, like if you do more than 30% match, you get higher points. But the TAP isn't like that. It's really just decided internally. And there's no known point system that they share with anybody. If they have something internally, it's not transparent how they make those decisions.
Richard, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I have the same concerns as you, John. I guess from what I'm hearing, I'd be inclined to shoot for the 70, and then that gives us some flexibility to reduce it later if we have to.
Did I hear you correctly, Larry, though, that might require another application, or that would be part of the negotiation, or to be determined?
I think Emily has had, and she can speak to this, to where they have come back and not required another application, but just given the opportunity that says contribute 5% more, and you can probably get awarded or something like that. So it's not definite like that. But if it were rejected, you still have the opportunity to make a determination, ask why, and then if that's one of the criteria, you'd have the opportunity in the next application to just increase it, same application.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, I think at 70% TAP and a 30% match is, you're in there with a competitive application. So there's nothing wrong with doing that.
Okay. I think the Friends would be comfortable with that.
Okay. Well, if that's where you all are comfortable at 70-30, can I just ask the committee members, just take a quick poll? Does that sound good to you, Kathy?
Yes,
Cindy? Might have lost her. Ken?
Yes, sounds good.
Okay, Jerry, we've lost. And then obviously John and Richard, so, and that sounds good to me, so.
That sounds good to me too, Holly. Sorry, I was on a different screen and could not unmute.
Okay, all right. 70-30, that's our magical ratio. We hope for the best. Do we need to make a motion for that, or can we just have it be that we all decided that that would be the recommendation and the comfort level of the Friends? And we're all good with that. Ken or Ryan? Is that cool? Is it okay that we've just made the recommendation, or do I need to make a more formal motion?
We're good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to discuss, I believe we can move on. Is that correct, Larry? Is there anything else we need to cover?
Good to move on.
Okay. Emily, let's discuss schedule and requirements for local unit of government, including Allegan County.
Well, okay, so the grant requires resolutions of support from all the governments that the trail goes through. So we need that. And if they're committing to maintenance, that needs to be in the resolution. If they're committing funding, that needs to be in the resolution. So those, we need to have those things done. And I think Saugatuck Township met and we're trying to figure out, yeah, I talked to Joe that I might need a just separate resolution. But I can tell you there's a new TAP grant coordinator and he is out of town. So I have left messages. So I'm hoping to get that feedback on hopefully early next week
Okay.
on the township resolution. We do need a letter from the Allegan County Road Commission stating that they'll allow for the trail and their road right of way as well.
Emily, do you need a resolution from my board or just a letter from me would be sufficient?
I think from Allegan County, a letter would be sufficient.
Okay,
Obviously, it would be like, you know, that permits would have to be approved, all that kind of stuff.
sure.
but that-
Yeah. Yep.
That you're supportive.
Okay.
Craig, if your board felt like they would like to do a resolution of support of the trail, that would be helpful, but required.
Okay, yeah, I'll add it to our next board agenda for September 22 and just run it by them. And if they want to do a resolution, we'll do that. If not, I can just draft something up. So.
Okay.
And then also the Friends, we really should have something from the Friends stating that they're willing to raise that additional money. So.
And that would be a specific dollar amount based on your budget? Is that what we're putting in the letter, or?
Because in the grant, like, well, once we have the exact numbers, we can then say, you know, where 600,000 is coming from the trust fund. And then whatever the township and cities donate, then that remainder of the money is the amount that the Friends would have to commit to. So I don't know what that number is exactly right now.
Okay.
But yeah, that would be good. And that could be by a letter. I don't know how your board works, if there needs to be a motion or a resolution.
How about support letters from other communities along the broader trail?
That's always good to have. And any businesses along the trail, the county government, you know, whoever, that always helps.
And the timing of those?
You know, if we can get them by October 13th, that's great. There is time to add additional supplemental materials. So we don't have to have those to submit on October 13th. If I had them, I would upload them to the program. If not, we would have time to gather more if we need to. Also, your legislators. I forgot about that. I meant to suggest that, to get letters of support from the legislators.
Okay. All
So
right.
Holly, who's going to do that?
Um,
Holly, I can assist with the letters from the legislators.
okay, thank you. Saugatuck, I don't know that we have any businesses along, well, we would have maybe Hotel Saugatuck. Does it have to be, Emily, does it have to be absolutely abutting the trail?
Oh,
Or
no, it could be any business.
any business?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice when they're abutting the trail, because then MDOT knows that, they're supportive, or they're not gonna come yell about it later afterwards. But MDOT doesn't like that, so.
All right.
But any letters of support are good.
Okay,
It could be from the chamber and visitors bureaus.
Sadaba, perhaps.
What?
I was gonna say, we have a local business organizations in Saugatuck, Douglas,
Right.
Sadaba.
I'll
Oh,
work-
yeah, that would be great.
I'll work on that. Okay. And Emily, I'll just make sure that you're working with Ryan and Rich LeBombard so that, everybody has, what they need at the meetings on the proper dates. And if there's anything else you need, just let us know.
Do
What's
you
the,
need proposed resolution language? I have some from other communities that we could put, now that we know what the route is and we'll have the numbers, it'll be easier to, I can put together some draft resolutions if you would like.
Okay. Kathy, what were you going to say?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Couldn't there be one resolution for all, and the numbers that each contributes is slightly different is all, and the maintenance thing is slightly different. So other than that, it should be the exact same thing, I would think.
Yeah, we are trying to share what we can back and forth. Nobody wants to reinvent the wheel, and there's been a lot of paperwork involved with this and a lot of time. So yes.
So Emily, you'll give that, for my minutes, you'll give us that sample and then each manager will do it, or how do you wanna?
If you would like me to do that, I can put something like that together.
I think that'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kathy, I will get with Rich and see what he would like from me in terms of if you guys need a presentation or exactly what you think you need to pass that resolution. I am planning to attend the Saugatuck work session on September 22nd at 4 p.m., right?
Mhm.
So we'll do a presentation to them.
Yes.
I think it'll pass. It's just this local match that might end up in a discussion. So that's kind of where Rich has to work that out too. So, okay.
So far, we haven't, nobody is suggesting Douglas contribute, right? We haven't had that.
And that's why it might be 0, it might be 500 to show good faith, or 1,000, but that has to be in that resolution. So, okay.
Okay.
All right. I think we were going to talk.
I'll say one more thing. Mike Betts, if you can ask the chief now to write a letter of support for the options that have been chosen, that would be very helpful as well.
Is Mike still with
Yes.
us?
Yes, I am. I will pass that along.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be very good, because one of our reasons for choosing the 3-lane option is, because of that feedback. So it would be really good to have a letter.
Okay. Yep, I will pass that along to Chief Janik.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we done? I think we're done with that portion.
Mhm.
I know we were going to talk about committee role and continued work, but I'm wondering if we can do that at another time. Do we have to do that today? Because this has been a long meeting. And if everyone agrees, I think we can roll that over to another meeting.
Okay with me.
All right. Does anyone else have anything else to say? Because I'm gonna get to the general public comments and wrap her up here. Is that good? Okay, any members of the public who want to weigh in on the non-motorized trail at this time? Limit comments to 3 minutes. Do we have absolutely anyone crazy enough from the public who has stuck with us this entire time? No. Okay.
You have a hand up, Mark Kimball.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mark? Trying to, I can't see everybody on my screen.
Let me quit sharing. That might help. He's muted right now. I don't know if you have to unmute him or he can.
All right, Mark, let me see if I can unmute you.
There, I unmuted. Yeah, okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd just like to say I'm a little disappointed in the 2-lane or the 3-lane option being adopted. I've been a runner for 30 years plus and a biker longer than that. And I know anytime you come to an intersection, as a runner, I make sure I make eye contact with the driver. And very seldom when they're making a right turn do they look to the right, and frequently have to stop. And I think as you have bikes approaching Lake Street at a higher speed than a pedestrian, it's going to compound that issue. And I think without any traffic control device at Lake Street, I won't use it, even 2-lane or 3-lane, because I feel I'm just taking my life in my own hands. So I also don't understand, that's not a state highway. Isn't that under local control to decide whether we have a stoplight or not? And I guess that's all I have to say.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mark. And we hear you. We do. I mean, we understand there's definitely a strong preference for the light. We may just have to separate those issues at this time, unfortunately. Do we have any committee? Do we have any other members of the public that want to comment? I don't see anybody else. Okay. Do any committee members have any closing comments? Nope. Okay. If there's nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second, and I'll take the roll. Kathy,
Yes.
Cindy? She'll come back to, I'll come back to her. Ken?
Yes.
John Adams?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Okay, Cindy, are you back?
I'm back and I vote yes.
Okay, great. It was a rough one, but thank you, everybody. I really appreciate all of your time that you've put in on this. It's been a bear, so thank you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, sweets. Hey, just got off a meeting. Gotta do a quick. I didn't get your text. What's up? Oh, yep. Probably leaving here in the next 10 minutes. Okay, love you.